Owing to the poor state of the economy, the Monetary Policy Committee increased the lending rate from 12% to 14%. The central bank governor, Mr. Godwin Emefiele, explained that the decision is based on the rise in inflation and the weak macroeconomic environment.
The Nigerian economy is still saddled with effects of the shocks of the first quarter of 2016, which led to a contraction in output arising from energy shortages, high electricity tariff, price hikes, scarcity of foreign exchange, and depressed consumer demand, among others. Whereas the influence and persistence of some of the factors waned in the second quarter, it is unlikely that the economy rebounded strongly in the second quarter as setbacks in the energy sector continued, owing mainly to vandalism of oil installations. The MPC was further concerned that while the situation called for obvious tightening of the monetary policy stance, the recession confronting the economy and the prospects of negative growth to year-end needed to be factored into the policy parameters.
The Monetary Policy Committee says it is also worried about the non-payment of salaries of workers across the country as it has affected growth process and reduced aggregate demand.
I'm not used to a prepared text, but I'm told I must read a short speech of the chairman.
State governors are not finding the recession comfortable, and those who are elected under the platform of the All Progressives Congress met to find a way to tackle the challenges.
Plummeting to the lowest level in recent years, allocation to states from the Federation account has diminished by more than 60%. This reality is juxtaposed with the fact that between the period of high oil prices and the beginning of the current economic recession, states have employed more personnel in its services. Many capital-intensive infrastructure projects had been started, and the expectations of our people have ballooned. Now is the time to think outside the box and make innovative yet pragmatic choices, however hard, to steer our economy and her citizens from a seeping gloaming and the bloom that we promised at the last general election. The task is enormous, but not impossible.
Nigeria is facing unprecedented and tremendous political and economic challenges with global and local dynamics. Regardless of these challenges, opportunities and possibilities abound if we address some fundamental issues. The key to achieving this is to have a development plan that is anchored on realizing inclusive and sustainable growth. Truly, it is when we have challenges like this that the best will be forced to think out of the box, and it will bring out the best in us. Indeed, this thesis centered on the fact that inclusive and sustainable growth cannot be achieved without conscious efforts to deconstruct the dynasties of poverty and maximize states and Nigeria's comparative and competitive advantage.
As governors and as government, it's very, very important to give priority to restoration of institutions, because it is institutions that determine economic growth. A very often cited case around the world is the contrast between China and India. Two countries with big populations, one adopting the market economy, the other adopting a more controlled socialistic economy. But because of the development of institutions and the way those institutions have promoted private property, have promoted property rights, have promoted rule-based governance, both of those countries have achieved economic growth despite the differences in ideological take.
Also speaking at the event, a former governor of the Central Bank of Nigeria, Professor Charles Soludo, said Nigeria was facing unprecedented and tremendous political and economic challenges with global and local dynamics. He, however, made a few recommendations on steps that should be taken to address the challenges.
We're talking about being in recession or GDP growing by -0 point something. That's in Naira terms. In dollar terms, the size of Nigerian economy has compressed by about 50%. I'm not sure many of us do really, from about $575 billion economy to about 296 today. Depending on the exchange rate that you use anywhere. If you use the nearly 400, then you are closer to $250 billion. Because the size of the economy in nominal terms is about 108 or thereabout trillion. So divide that by about 400, you get some numbers. So, we are now back to second position, to South Africa. We used to be the first. So there is massive compression. Per capita income has also come down by about half. The per capita income is growing negatively. The implication of this is that poverty is escalating. Inequality is also escalating. Unemployment is ballooning. The economy is technically in recession. Nominal wage has come down comprehensively.
Nevertheless, the government is asking Nigerians not to despair in the face of the economy, insisting that a plan for a speedy recovery from the recession is on the way.
When you're thinking of restructuring the economy, when you're thinking of the big things that you've described, obviously when your output of power drops by over 60%, you have a major problem. In restructuring any economy, I think that's also important to bear in mind. I mean, because the context here is absolutely important. You are, as it were, fighting wars. You know, you are in the Niger Delta, contending with the vandalization and an ongoing vandalization. I think that's very important. I don't think it's a matter of finger pointing. I think it's probably understates the problem to say it's just a matter of blaming somebody else. No, the reality is there. The facts are there. The other thing is corruption. I want to say that I do not know, and I'm sure that you might be able to correct me. I don't know of any other country, certainly not any of the emerging economies, that has experienced the kind of corruption, the scale that Nigeria has experienced. I don't know of any.
But analysts are insisting that the plan should include a declaration of a state of emergency on the nation's economy.
You see the movement of cash, you know, that is still going around there. You see the unbankables. Those people who don't even trust about Naira, they don't know what dollar is, but everybody is talking about dollar now. I tell you what, this has improved the knowledge of our citizens, knowing that, look, our economy depends solely on foreign exchange and depend, when I say solely, maybe in code, and then depend on importation. But now until we begin to say, listen, there's a gentleman that manufactures tomato paste in this country is complaining that nobody is buying what he manufactures. So people have this taste for foreign luxury products. And listen, in Rwanda, the president of Rwanda said, listen, if you want to smoke cigarette, it's your business. That is not something that keeps you going. There's a tax on cigarette. If you want to buy the best champagne, that's luxury. Tax on that. So we begin to have drastic measures, but it's not just to tax everybody till death when they're not making money.
We need to declare a state of economic emergency. And the starting point is for the leadership of that country to cut down on its prodigious lifestyle. For the president to sell off those jails that he packed, 11 of them. For the National Assembly to stop collecting 115 billion naira every year, which they can't account for. For them to stop the corruption and budget padding. For them to cut down the kind of frivolous lifestyles they are leading, so that they should lead by example. We don't need to see a president driving BMW or Rolls-Royce limousine cars or Mercedes-Benz. We want him to drive innocent. We want him to drive Peugeot. We want him to lead by example. The days of preaching and sermonizing are gone. We need a charismatic leader, somebody who brings out new innovative ideas to move the country forward. We no longer want square pegs in round holes. Let's have sharp developmental economics to run our economy.